for Living in Color. How y'all doing? My name is Deaunte Damper, and you're watching We Live in Color. So excited about this new episode. But before we watch, remember to like, share, and subscribe to watch not just We Live in Color, but Converge Media. We have a great show today. I have a great friend, community activist, paralegal, so many hats. Castill Hightower here with us today. But Castill has been community family for years, okay? We have a small clip. Oh, play that clip.
They're also one of the highest paid departments in the city of Seattle. One of the most inflated budget that just got $5.4 million in overtime pay during the Justice for George Floyd movements in Seattle that showed so much brutalization of so many peaceful protesters. They got additional pay for that. Just looking at this department and seeing just the lack of accountability again, like if I were to, respond to something that had to do with my job that directly harmed a family, that directly traumatized a family, I would get fired for that. But they're allowed to do that. They're allowed to not have any accountability, to continue to make excuse after excuse after excuse. And what is my family supposed to do in the meantime? Just continue to grieve, just be okay with that? I think it just shows the power of a movement and the need of movements in order to pressure these institutionalized, these multiple institutions who refuse to have any accountability for their actions, who push back against any type of, I'm not necessarily reformist, but any type of change to the way that they're lacking in that accountability. They push back on, community oversight boards. They push back on defunding, but they have the largest budget in the Seattle city. So what is it? Should we now continue to just have this overinflated budget with lack of accountability and be okay with that? When do we say enough is enough? My family is a casualty of their lack of accountability. My family was directly harmed. Our brother was snatched from us. And I'm supposed to be okay with them not giving me answers and continuing to gaslight my family and continue to make excuses for the fact that they refuse to give us answers. I'm not okay with that. I don't think anyone who believes in justice for impacted families, who believes in justice for impacted people who have been brutalized by the Seattle police should be okay with that.
And if that didn't tell you about how fire my next guest is, we need to talk more about this accountability. And we also need to continue to say his name, Herbert Hightower. I have Castill Hightower here next. You're going to take a quick break. You're watching We Live in Color.
Did it again. Another year at Seattle's iconic Paramount Theater is in the books. A true experience that would live with us forever. We want to say thank you to all of our amazing guests for taking the time to join us, share your stories, and be vulnerable. We want to say thank you, our amazing fans and supporters who joined us live in the theater and watched the broadcast online. A huge thank you to the Seattle Theater Group for your years of partnership that continue to grow stronger and your intentionality to uplift Black voices in our community. And last but absolutely not least, thank you to Converge Media's official production partner from day one, the Elite Collective, whose team of producers, directors, and camera operators once again created TV magic. Until next time, keep it locked right here to Converge Media as we continue to uplift Black voices in our community and beyond. If you have an event coming up, tap in with the Elite Collective for all of your event production needs. And of course, always remember, Black media matters.
COVID-19 hurt my income, my health, and my family. We were about to lose our home when we heard we might be eligible for homeowner assistance funds from the government. We called 1-877-894-HOME, and a housing counselor stepped in, talked to our lender, and saved our home. Federal funding details at washingtonhaf.org. That's washingtonhaf.org.
we're back with We Live in Color. I'm here with the lovely Castill Hightower. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy that you're here.
Happy to be here.
We go a long ways
Yeah.
back.
I know.
And I
Way
know
back to
that I
RB.
wanted to start off with your message because like when you speak, you just it's passion, it's fire, and just to make sure that we continue to acknowledge your brother is so important for community. But I remember little Castill.
Awkward, nerdy Castill.
Can you take us back, like before before you came into this beautiful activist, right? How did you become? What was it like growing up here in Seattle?
Yeah. I probably would want to take it back a little bit further than that.
Okay, let's go far back.
Well, I guess just for people to understand our story just a little bit more. I'm originally from Arkansas, Helena, Arkansas, a really small town. I spent the first 10 years of my life there. My dad was in the Navy, and so he moved around a lot. So my brother Herbert was actually born in Korea.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay.
He didn't speak English for like the first 1 to 2 years of his life because he was at the Navy base in Seoul, Korea. But I was born in Arkansas, and we grew up pretty poor. We grew up very country with cows well, not with cows, but there were cows in the country and things of that nature. And we just kind of spent a lot of time outdoors playing and things like that. And then when I was about 7 years old, my brother Andre Latham was actually shot and killed.
Wait. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's three of you. You have three. It's three of you in your family.
Actually, there's a lot.
Okay.
So I'm the youngest of 5 on my mother's side, and then my dad had about 3 to 4 other children. One that's younger than me, and 2 to 3 that are older than me.
Okay.
But the way I was raised mainly with the 4 other children, along with myself, that were all my mother's children.
Okay.
So the oldest of those 5 was Andre.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about Andre?
Yeah, sure. So Andre was deaf. But he was kind of like my dad because he was so much older than me because I was the baby. And he helped us just kind of learn sign language. And so when I was younger, I was a lot more fluent in sign language. It's just something I want to kind of pick up again. But he was really good at basketball. So we would go down to this community center pretty often and just kind of, hang out. It was one of the many places that we had, or one of the few places that we had, just kind of in the town that we lived. And so when we were at the community center, we just kind of, talk to the kids and things of that nature. He'd stay a little bit longer afterwards to just play with the other children that were there. But on one particular night, he was down there playing. And he was so good at basketball that he'd showboat a little bit, show off and things like that. He's a kid. Like, I think he was only like in his early 20s at the most. And so one night he was down there playing with a young man, and we kind of knew, it was kind of well known that there was a gun that was kept in the office that was unlocked. When I was a kid, it was more so a rumor, but it seemed like a lot of kids knew about one of the, I don't know what you would call them, like one of the community center staff persons had a gun in his drawer there, and he didn't lock it up. So my brother was down there playing basketball, winning, and then kind of showboating. And my brother's deaf, so he couldn't hear that the other young man that he was playing with was like saying things and getting angrier and things of that nature. So after my brother had beat him in basketball, the young man went into the office that he knew where a gun was kept, took the gun, and then came back out and shot my brother in the chest.
My God.
Yeah.
And that was here in Seattle, or was that in Arkansas?
It was in Arkansas.
Oh, wow.
And it was what brought us to Seattle, was the gun violence we experienced when we lived in Arkansas, because my dad's family is mainly from like Arkansas. A lot of them have migrated to like Missouri now, but a lot of them were from Arkansas. And so that's kind of what kept us there. And then after my brother Andre died, we moved up to Seattle, which is where a lot of my mom's family is from. Like we're in Chief Self, different yearbooks, and we went to Rainier Beach, and my parents met in Seattle.
Okay.
So we have a lot of history here.
That's just that's something, just to move here because of gun violence in that space, right?
Yeah.
Then you come here, right? And shout out to your mother, who's a resilient lady.
Yeah,
An opportunity to meet her, but you come here, and then you went to Rainier Beach.
Yes.
Okay, you went to Rainier Beach, but what other high schools did you go to?
So I went to Rainier Beach, I went to Chief Self, and I went to Ingram as well.
We went to Ingram. Now
Yeah.
So I know just seeing them on the news recently had to really just like
Yes. Yeah. My
just
heart goes out to the family of the young person that was killed, and then all the children and the staff that were impacted as well. So
Yeah.
it was a shock.
So going through high school, what were you like in high school? Because you was real
Yeah.
quiet.
I was super quiet.
Really, really
Yeah,
quiet.
I was very quiet. I had like about my 3 to 4 friends that I was just really insecure, going through that whole teenage angst, trying to figure out who I was. I am queer, so just struggling with that. And then, in the Black community, it's
so let's unpack that, right?
okay. That's a whole lot.
So being queer, right?
Mhm.
What was that process like through community, right? Because we already looked through one lens of how we're supposed to be. So
I think it's just like feeling like there's a part of me that's lacking, getting the more so the homophobic message, that there was a part of me that was lacking.
and you're from down south.
Yes.
So I know it was real Bible
Bible
thumping going on.
Yeah, you just think there's something wrong with you. That's at least what I experienced. Was like, I don't want to get too graphic, but just feeling like I'm not whole, or I don't completely fit, or why do I have these feelings and things of that nature, and thinking there's something just inherently wrong about that, rather than just being in a community that just makes me feel accepted, and I'm not necessarily saying that, painting a broad stroke, but just as a Black person, it was a struggle for me because of the different messages that I got as far as what it means to be, Black, and what it means to be in community, and what it means to be, normal, or all the problematic things that make you stay in the closet for a lot longer and not really live in your truth.
When did you come out?
Oh man, I don't remember. It was late. I was actually probably in my late 20s when I actually just was like, you know what? If you are in my life, then you have to accept this part about me. And I think it probably was because I was out on my own. I didn't, I was paying my own bills. I didn't feel like I was obligated to anyone in any way that would have, really affected my life negatively. I was like, you know what? If I'm paying my own bills, if I'm putting this roof over my head, then I'm gonna accept myself for who I am. And probably just the media that I was kind of looking at and seeing other people live their truths, and just feeling like, why can't that be me? Why can't I just live my truth? There's nothing wrong with me. I'm perfectly normal. I'm a normal human being who's queer, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Was the family accepting? I gotta ask that.
Yeah, they were. They really were. It was a little awkward. I think it's just because it was a bit of a surprise, because I definitely suppressed it a whole lot. But they were very welcoming, very open, very accepting of me, and I feel really gracious for that. I feel really grateful for that, to be able to come out and not feel like I'm gonna have to deal with a whole other level of trauma, just in the fact of me accepting myself for who I am.
Yeah.
So.
And I've never heard you talk about your queerness. So
I
it's just like it's just a light, right? And like throughout your process of growing up, and like right before you came out, I know what was that high school. Well, actually, you know what? We're gonna get into high school senior year, right?
Okay.
And we're gonna do that when we come back. You're watching We Live in Color.
A world of wonder awaits at Pacific Northwest Ballet's The Nutcracker. Treat your loved ones to the Northwest's favorite holiday tradition at Seattle Center's McCaw Hall. Tickets start at $27. Visit pnb.org.
COVID-19 hurt my income, my health, and my family. We were about to lose our home when we heard we might be eligible for homeowner assistance funds from the government. We called 1-877-894-HOME, and a housing counselor stepped in, talked to our lender, and saved our home. Federal funding details at washingtonhalf.org. That's washingtonhaf.org.
So we are back here where we live in color. I'm here with Castill Hightower. So we were talking about graduation year. Oh, for Shoto. So can you walk us through that year for you?
Yeah, so I was at Ingram High School at that time. And I was just kind of going through with the flow of being a high school senior, all that comes with that. And then pretty much in the middle of that was when my brother Herbert Hightower Jr. was shot and killed by Seattle police while he was experiencing a mental health crisis. And so because of that level of trauma, it really disrupted just everything in my life, everything in my family's life. It just kind of all imploded, however you want to describe it.
Do you remember where you were when you found out the news?
Yeah, I was at home. I was sleeping and my mom woke me up. At that time, it was myself, my mom, and her boyfriend were living on Stone Avenue, like kind of right across from the street that my brother was killed at. And my sister lived down the street in the same apartment complex with my brother Herbert. And then above us was his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend, and my nephew Andre had lived upstairs. So we were all kind of really close together. But when I found out, my mom woke me up and it was just kind of like this flood of like red and blue lights. And then it gets kind of blurry a bit, and like the sequence of events that kind of happened afterward. So.
And how soon did y'all find out like it was by a cop?
Yeah, it was. So we were kind of taking tally of where everyone was at the time. And we were just like, where's Herbert? And the biggest thing is that it became a very familiar feeling for me. So after losing Andre, I just kind of started feeling that same familiar feeling when things were kind of happening, were kind of blurry. I was like, this feels really familiar and I don't like it, but where's Herbert? Where's Herbert? And it was almost like we were asking the question, but we're regretfully knowing the answer. So
yeah. So in going through that, right? So what was the support like in community like through that time, right? Because I mean it was 04.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot going on here in Seattle. I think we just got the riots were 6 years before that, but either
Mm-hmm.
way, police injustice, officers shooting shooting black men, like that was a rare conversation in community. It was, but not as pushed, right? So what was that like throughout that space?
So for us, we struggle with a lot of support. I did learn years later, that there was like a concert that was done in order for us to pay to get my brother buried.
Wow.
And for the funeral itself, but we weren't able to get him a headstone. We weren't able to do that until we were all adults many years later. Yeah. But we struggle with support. We were always kind of, below the poverty line. We were low income, living in low income housing. So just trying to figure out everything, trying to navigate the system, trying to figure out answers. We were getting different answers by the police every time they visited our house, and every time it became less empathetic and it became less accountable and more so about them just
protecting themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, getting those type of messages, not really understanding what happened, because every time they came, it was very different from the last story. So the confusion that came with that. And then we were harassed by the media. There was a moment when there was a media person outside of our house, and my mom was literally in the bed crying, going through all of the stages of grief. And this person is like trying to put a camera in front of our face and trying to have us talk about that as we're going through that trauma.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then later on, because we didn't speak to that person, I don't know if it was because we didn't, but later on we saw that they just vilified my brother, so not feeling ready.
And vilified him as in how?
I mean, they brought up different things that would make him look like, it was his fault, that he was a problem. I know that my brother had not necessarily a criminal record, but he had been in King County at one point or another. So bringing that whole situation up, and then, just really making it seem like the officer had no choice type of situation, which we later found out is a lot sketchier.
Right.
So.
And you found out that later. You found out that process later on.
Yeah.
So over the years, what in between, like the death in 2004 and up until then, what was your process like through that space? Because now you're working in law, so walk me through that process.
Yeah, so kind of what made me want to pursue like being a paralegal was the killings of my brothers and wanting to. I just spend hours on YouTube and I was interested in learning how to use the law in order to protect each other, like things like how do you act when you're in the presence of a law officer, what kind of things can help keep you safe, which as Black folks, you know, who knows what that really looks like. You know, there's so many things we can prepare ourselves for, but when it comes to police violence, sometimes logic is out the window when it comes to how we're being interacted with, right? And so at that time I was just really interested in learning about how the law can be used to help protect community, to help serve community, to help uplift community, and to empower the community. That's my viewpoint on the law at that particular point in time. At the time, I was working at Providence Health and Services, and I had been there for about 5 years, but due to the recession, there was like this massive layoff and hundreds of us got laid off. But they gave us a couple months in advance to figure out what to do. And so I took that opportunity to learn about different programs that I could, you know, be able to pursue a paralegal degree, and I found a program through Edmonds College, which is why I ended up graduating. I just kind of went right back to Edmonds College, and where I got my high school diploma and was able to get my paralegal degree from there as well.
Okay. And how was that process? Like, literally, like once you started getting into law, did you start looking more into your brother's cases?
I didn't start looking more into my brother's case until about 2020, and that was a bit before that. And it was probably because my direction at that time wasn't necessarily police accountability. It was more so using the law to empower each other. And, you know, but it was based on the fact of my own personal experience losing someone in such an unjust way.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, like 2020, that was a year for you. You know, and can you walk community like through that process? Because you had rising up, right? I look at you, Castill, as like a phoenix, right? Because when you like finding your voice and finding your passion and not doubting yourself, I've watched you just go forth. So can you walk us through that year for me?
Oh my goodness. So like just seeing how, because for me, from where we were coming from, it was such a quiet and solemn and almost a silencing trauma.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
seeing other people just be so loud and boisterous about it, and seeing the amount of community support that was there, and just seeing the explosion of just, we've never seen something like that before in my lifetime. And I think in most of our lifetimes, this huge just civil rights movement, particularly for people who have been harmed and killed by police violence within the Black community, you know. And so I'm seeing all of this happen. I'm, you know, working at a law firm at the time. I think we kind of started going towards hybrid work. So I'm like at home, seeing all this happen. And honestly, I'm gonna just be really vulnerable. There was just a point in my life, I just broke down. I was like, why not us? Why can't we fight just like everyone else? Why can't we get justice? Why can't we get accountability? And it broke me. I was just, I have to say something, because it was more so a conversation amongst friends and family that knew about Herbert. And I just felt like I'm invisible, but I'm not, you know, like, yeah. So.
And you're not.
Yeah.
So talking with your family, excuse me, kind of got me there. Talking with your family, throughout that process, how did you start going into action?
I was kind of frantic. I was like, who can help me? Okay, who can do like, so I'd already kind of like, I was familiar with like King County Equity Now. I was familiar with some of the work that Nikita Oliver was doing, all the amazing work that they were doing. And just like all of these different heroes in the Seattle community that were just doing all this amazing work. And so I just started reaching out to whoever, you know, and I was able to connect with a lot of other people. And I was like, here's my story. What can we do? What can you help me? How can you help me? You know, how can I get involved in this? How can I talk about this? How can we get some kind of justice? I'm like, I know it's a long shot. I know it's been, because at that point it was like 16 years after my brother had passed. But I was like, I had watched different videos of people going to like DC and doing all these demonstrations. And there were people out there like me that had lost a loved one to police violence so like decades ago, and still out there saying, if I'm not out here, if I don't say anything, then who's going to do it? Who's going to talk about it? And, my brother was my brother. He was a part of my life. We share the same mom and dad. We have like the same DNA. And I'm like, he has a son. He existed. And it felt like what happened to us wiped him off the map, and I'm like, no, he existed. He was here. He matters. People need to know about this. Yeah. Like just seeing like the crying mothers, crying about and then like feeling like to myself, like, that's my mom. That's my mom. And I want people to know that, because she holds so much pain from losing. Like, I'm a mom now. I can imagine losing 2 children in such a violent way. One in the community, another against the entire system, that you almost feel like there's another death and another death. And every time you think about the injustices, you think about how the system allows just a re-traumatization of people who deserves empathy, who deserve support, who deserve resources. So
keep on going, sis. Yes, it's real. But one thing I love is like the turnaround, like you, like how you stated, like, it was hard to find like the support, especially because like we didn't have the camera phones, we didn't have we didn't have social media, but then that turnaround happened, right? And the support that you and your family got at that point just seemed like it was there, and it was calls to action. I remember Takia, shout out to Takia, Art of the Matter. I know Takia designed. Can you walk us through that process? Because it was, I believe, your brother and Shanita Lau. Shout out to the Lau's family as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm blanking a little bit on exactly how I got connected to Takia Ward. But somehow in that process, we were connected. And we had been talking about just general artwork that could be done for my brother. I think at first we were talking about like a mural, but then she got this amazing opportunity with Russell Wilson. And so she reached out to me, and they were like, there's this opportunity. And I was like, yeah, for sure. This sounds amazing, and it was really funny because my family's a huge Seahawks fan. Like, everyone loves the Seahawks. I know a lot about the Seahawks against my will, because my family talks about them.
You better than me, sis, because my friends are still making fun of me. Sorry, y'all. But yeah.
But like my nephew Andre loved Russell Wilson. And so it was really an honor to be able to see my brother honored in that way, and for other people to learn about, pieces of his story, if not a large portion of his story, by the work that Takia did and the work that Russell uplifted. Yeah. So it was really awesome to see that happen.
They were amazing. Yes, okay, I wanted me up here. Okay, we're gonna get into some more. We'll be back in just. Oh, yep, and we'll be back having more discussions about murals, movements, and moments. You're watching We Live in Color.
Did it again. Another year at Seattle's iconic Paramount Theater is in the books. A true experience that would live with us forever. We want to say thank you to all of our amazing guests for taking the time to join us, share your stories, and be vulnerable. We want to say thank you, our amazing fans and supporters who joined us live in the theater and watched the broadcast online. A huge thank you to the Seattle Theater Group for your years of partnership that continue to grow stronger, and your intentionality to uplift Black voices in our community. And last but absolutely not least, thank you to Converge Media's official production partner from day one, the Elite Collective, whose team of producers, directors, and camera operators once again created TV magic. Until next time, keep it locked right here to Converge Media as we continue to uplift Black voices in our community and beyond. If you have an event coming up, tap in with the Elite Collective for all of your event production needs. And of course, always remember, Black media matters.
And we're back where we live in color. Castill, you are such a movement.
Oh, thank you.
Your brother's name is a movement in this spaces of this community. Last year, still in the arena of like getting out of the pandemic, you had a march. Do you want to talk about a little bit about that? Because a lot started, it was already happening, but it just started happening even more in the space.
You were there.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. Uh-huh. On our link tree, on your face.
Right.
And I appreciate you.
Oh, I love
along
you.
with Trey Holiday that came out and spoke, and a number of others. But we walked. So when my brother was killed, there was a place that he had started walking
Can we
from.
say, just if it's okay, just say where he was killed at?
Yeah, he was killed like right across the street from our home in North Seattle off of Stone Avenue. So like kind of right in the middle of the street.
By the hospital. There's a hospital over there.
Yeah. So there's a hospital and then there's a graveyard. And he was kind of like just passing the graveyard, which so he started walking from a payphone that was at a 7-Eleven that was not too far from our home. And then he started walking kind of up, I think it was south. And then he made a left and started walking past the hospital, and then eventually came kind of where the graveyard was, which is where he was shot and killed. And so part of the march was us walking, it was called a walk for Herbert. And so we basically retraced his steps, and it was super emotional. Because my mom was there, my brother and my sister are there, and we had never done that before in our entire lives since Herbert had been killed, to just even go there as a group. We had never been there as a group before in like the last 16 years, 17 years I think it was at that point. And so we retraced his steps, and then I had like a little plexi board up that talked about his story, which was in a handwritten note. And the reason why I chose it as a handwritten note was because a handwritten note was found on my brother telling us goodbye. And that was how we knew that he was having a mental health crisis at the time that he was shot and killed.
Oh my God.
And then we kind of ended it at the place that we ended it was actually right in front of his last apartment, where he had shared with my sister. And so it was just really interesting, just kind of, sitting there and talking about him and saying his name and speaking about his story right across from the last place that he had resided in.
Yeah.
So.
And it had to be full circle for family, at least at that point. But I respect your family, and all families have lost their loved one to gun violence, let alone by police. But you kept going.
Yeah.
And there's a community out here that supports. And we now have a mural. Yeah. So can we talk about the mural?
Yeah,
because that's been a project.
Oh my goodness! Did I tell you about that?
Yes. Yes.
Oh goodness. Okay, we ain't gonna get in that part. But there actually have been 2 murals. There was one that was first painted by a gentleman who lives in Everett. His name is Ruben. And so he painted a mural at this cafe called Squirrel Chops. And so it's kind of like a larger board that shows his face. And then there's a really big mural that's done, and that was recently done in Burien, and that was by Vivid Matter Collective artists BT, Afro, and Max. And I believe BT and Afro made 2 of the letters that was created for the Black Lives Matter mural down in Capitol Hill. So that it was pretty amazing, because it was really, they used a lot of his artwork. Herbert was an artist. We all were kind of like nerds and dorks that loved comic books and Marvel and all of that stuff. Yeah. And so we still have a lot of his artwork just scattered amongst our family. And so they incorporated some of that into the mural and created a whole entire superhero called Power Herb that was, named after my brother, which is amazing, because a lot of our childhood was thinking about, who's going to play the X-Men? If there ever was a movie.
Yeah. Which X-Men would you be?
Oh.
Can I ask you that?
You just caught me off guard there. I don't know. But I don't know, maybe Storm or something. Okay. Not to typecast myself.
Right.
Oh, Jubilee.
Okay. Ooh, high five. Jubilee. Yes. I love Jubilee.
And I love me some Rogue.
I like Rogue.
Oh my God.
Rogue. We were over here during the breaks talking about movies and what we should watch. So superheroes was one of them. So.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
I was just gonna go into nerd mode. How much I love Jubilee and the X-Men and all of those things. We were just talking about earlier. I just got into Star Wars a little bit and started going. I'm watching Andor, which is amazing. Anyway.
Yeah. But we're here. But it's just the joy, seeing you smile. Aww. I know that this process has been has to be extremely heavy, but no different from Black Media Matters Studio. Everyone in Converge, we fully support you and your family. But what is next? What more can we do to support?
Oh, well, thank you for asking. I think kind of what we were talking about earlier, just coming into our own, a lot of what I did in the beginning, I was supported by a lot of brilliant minds and a lot of supported persons. But, I'm almost 40 now, and I'm ready to just kind of step into my own a bit and seeing where that takes me. I kind of went through a phase in my life where I didn't really know which direction I wanted to go. And, that caused trauma and frustration and things of that nature. But I kept pushing because I was like, whatever I want to do, it ain't what I don't want to do. It ain't,
That's right.
It ain't what has caused me trauma. It ain't X, Y, and Z that I know has been really tough and really difficult. And, we're in the middle of so many different things that's happening and time is flying. And I was just like, you know what? I got this far, might as well keep on going and see where it takes me.
So how can communities support?
So right now what I'm working on is I've been advocating to get a separate office, independent office set up specifically for people who have been impacted by police violence. So whether they're surviving family members or they're survivors themselves of police violence, getting resources to them like mental health services, burial and funeral costs, being able to get assistance navigating a really hostile system that we have right now that re-traumatizes victims and families as well. Traveling costs, childcare costs, loss of wage costs, just really the big shebang, just to be able to stop the trauma. Because when you have someone who is killed by the police, there's just a whole other level of trauma that comes with that outside of just losing someone alone. So that's what I've been advocating for. I've been urging the Seattle City Council. People probably know my voice because I've been at all the public comments saying different variations of why we need support, why there still needs to be resources for victims of police violence. And I think if people were, I called it the Impacted People's Budget. So it's,
okay.
Yeah, so it's on all my social media for Justice for Herbert Hightower Jr. So if people want to learn more about that and support it, there's still more public comment. I think there's one more that's like on November 15th, I believe that's coming up. So people to learn more about the Impacted People's Budget and dial into the public comment, and then, go to our pages and they can learn even more. So just help us just push for this initiative is one way that they can assist us. And then we also have a GoFundMe because it's not here yet.
It's not easy. And it's not easy doing this work.
Yeah. So we have a GoFundMe set up in order to pay for an attorney as well as a private investigator because there has been a new office of independent investigations that was set up by Governor Inslee, I think back in 2020, that it gives an avenue for people to look at cases of police violence. And so we're trying to raise money so that we can bring it forth and hopefully reopen this case.
Yes.
So that's another way people can support as well.
We keep going and we got to keep supporting.
Oh, thank you.
Still, you are so relentless, as I tell you. But you're living in color. You are living in your whole truth. I just see you from the shy girl to a powerhouse. And it's amazing to see you. And we do our Living Color tribute. We don't have a picture today, but who would you like to tribute?
My mom. So just thinking about everything that she's been through, me, myself being a mom, and just thinking about what it must be like. She's been a rock for me. She's gone through so much, and I just want to give her flowers. She's such a strong and resilient person. And I just think she just deserves that honor. Absolutely.
Yes. Shout out to Mom.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming on. And just one more time, if you could just look in that camera right there and just tell people how they can support. Call to action, sis.
So you can support by supporting the Impacted People's Budget, learning more about it. It's on all of the Justice for Herbert Hightower Jr. social media pages. There's links all over. So just click on that link, learn more about the Impacted People's Budget, show up at the next public comment. I believe it's on November 15th, but I apologize if that's wrong. But you can also support us by going to our GoFundMe. There's a couple of videos that I have that can link to that in order to donate and help us reopen Herbert's case and finally get him justice.
Thank you so much, my love, for coming on here. Love, 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 love you.
Love you too.
The support.
Yeah.
I got you.
Look, I'm still awkward. Okay.
You good. I want to thank everybody for watching We Live in Color today. Next week, we have an amazing guest. It's time to bring CD up in the house. Okay, we got Regine. Okay, Dennis Jimerson will be here. I'm so excited to have him in here. We have a great pageant that's coming up in the next couple of weeks. You don't want to miss next week. You were just watching We Live in Color. You have a blessed night.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.